Winning the War on Low-Grade Chemicals, and it's powered by CS Oilfield. And I'm going to introduce the speaker, Mrs. Ayobami Ogundipe. She's the Africa Business Development Manager at CS Oilfield. Let's put our hands together for Ms. Ayobami.
Hello everyone, good afternoon. My name is Ayobami Ogundipe and I work with CS Oilfield as the African Business Development Manager, and today I have the privilege of presenting to you a topic that affects the profitability, safety and sustainability of oilfield operations, winning the war on low-grade chemicals. Now, too often the decision that surrounds chemical quality that determines whether we achieve operational success or suffer costly setbacks. And today, I'll be discussing why this matters, the hidden price on the low-grade chemicals. I will discuss the cost illusion, why the cycle persists, the strategic approach we need to actually break the cycle, and also reiterate the issues on why we need to win, or the concerns why we need to win the war on low-grade chemicals. But first, we need to ask ourselves a very important question. Why does this matter so much in oilfield operations? You will agree with me that in oilfield operations, most of the time, chemicals don't usually take center stage, right? They sit in the background, but their impact is decisive. For example, you would see in drilling operations, most of the time when there is an issue in an operation, the first culprit would be the mud system or the chemicals. The wireline operations, the drilling operators will actually, blame the mud for any issues that they encounter in the field. And we are trying to say that we want to break this cycle. We don't want the mud or the chemicals to be the first culprit, the first point to blame. And the use of quality chemicals is very key in this thing. Now, if you use quality chemicals, it actually guarantees operational continuity. What that means is that your fluid will perform to design. You don't have to use so much of the chemicals. Rather, you use as per the quantity you're supposed to use. The integrity of your wellbore is secured. There is no wellbore damage, there is no non-productive time, and also your reputation is secured as a vendor or a supplier for the oil field operations. But if you use the low-grade option, it actually affects the operation directly and indirectly. Now, let's talk about the reason or the concerns that occurs or the issues that occurs when we use the low-grade option. Now, when you use the low-grade option, it affects the entire cycle of the operations, from drilling to completions to production. Even you think about the equipment and the environment in the long run. For example, or drilling and completions, you have inconsistent performance with your fluid design. Now you have to probably mix a brine with calcium chloride, for example, and you've calculated it and it says you have to use maybe 20 bags. And then at the end of the day, you're using 40 bags. That is already too much. You're spending so much. Now you have cementing failures. That's very, very important because usually you use barytes for your spacers to weight up your speed. Now you have barytes. You have to use 2 bags of barite, then you're using about 4 bags to weigh up your spacers. That's too much solids that can affect the design of your cementing. So very, very critical that you have to use quality product. Now, in production side, you have accelerated corrosion, inside flow lines, unstable emulsions and pore separations. This can affect your production ability in the long run. Then for the environment, if you're using low-grade chemicals, what that means is that most of the time you have higher discharge volumes. Now, what that means is that you would have to dispose the cost you spend on actually disposing of those volumes that you're creating is very high. Now, there is also, obviously, if you're using the low-grade option, you are definitely non-compliant with government or international standards in the long run, and also the impacts of using the chemicals itself on our society and even the people that are mixing it is very, very key. So we need to take these items into consideration. Then we have the equipment where, like I said earlier, the wireline engineers would say that the mud is the problem. Even the rig hands will tell you it is the mud that is making their liners and their seals to get bad as often as it is. Now, these are very, very important, and we are trying to steer away from the use of this low-grade option. Now, the impact of the low-grade option does not appear immediately, and that is the illusion there. It will crop up later after you have used it, and that is why we are going into the cost illusion, for example. Now, the term short-term gain and long-term loss actually captures the heart of the problem. Now, Kurt Russell will say the smallest decision will actually determine the impact of what we decide in the future. But in this case, in an oil field operation, the smallest decision, the smallest procurement decision can make or break millions of dollars in oil field projects. Now, let's talk about the illusion. On paper, right, low-cost inputs actually would appear cheaper, but in the long run, it drains billions across the industry. Now, the International Energy Agency attributes these hidden costs at about $75 to $100 billion. And imagine if we're able to save just $1 billion. This cost is not actually on chemicals alone. This is low-grade inputs generally. And imagine if we're able to save even just 1% of this value in our project. That is a huge number for an oil and gas operation. Now, also, it was also stated that 10 to 15% on non-productive time was allocated to drilling and completions was actually linked to substandard chemicals use. Now, this is also a huge number. If you have a 10 to 15% non-productive time on your rigs, that is rig time going. Also, you're going to be paying the service companies that are on the field at that time. That is a lot of cost that you're obviously incurring for your project, which would be saved in the long run if you had actually used the high or quality chemicals in the long run. And the illusion does not stop there. Also, you have for companies, they tend to pay heavy fines due to equipment leaks and toxic discharges. These are very, very critical information, as well as reputational damage. This is very important in the oil and gas industry. One lack of trust or one issue in the oil and gas industry can actually spread across board. Now, if I hear of a company that has actually performed below standard in another company, there is no way I would be willing to go and engage the services of that company in the long run. Now, operators definitely, they will suffer contract losses, vendor delisting, and sometimes most of these operators can actually blacklist that company for years on end, and you will not be able to get any contract again from that company. Now, if the cost of quality is so high, why do we keep falling into the same trap? Now, the answer lies with procurement. Don't get me wrong, we empathize with procurement because they are usually under enormous pressure to either, save cost, manage budget constraints, and when you give procurement KPIs that the cost is the first mandate for every tender. Now, what that tells you is that you're definitely steering away from the long-term value creation for that project. Now, if you're doing a bid and you consider cost over quality, what that tells you is that you're definitely demeaning the the profitability and the sustainability of that particular project. Also, talk about short tender cycles. Most of the time, procurement do not have enough time to actually carry out the due diligence on vendors. Now, what that means is that you're not able to understand the reliability and the ability of that particular vendor to actually deliver the project, or to actually deliver the service or the product that you are trying to engage their services on. And that is where the hidden performance comes. Now, procurement would celebrate the immediate wins, but in the long run, operations will tend to, suffer the consequences of the failures by either asset damage or production decline, and these failures comes with a huge cost in the end. You're trying to save a small amount of money, and in the end, in the future, you tend to spend millions of dollars to actually remediate the solution. Then this is where the fragmented accountability comes on, where the procurement bears the cost pressure, but the operation bears the consequences of the failure. Now, we have the limited technical evaluation, where we actually should not consider only the QA/QC of the product that we are trying to procure. Rather, we should go deep dive into the supplier or the vendor's ability to actually supply, the technical capacity, whether they are able to troubleshoot issues when they come up, and their reliability should not be overlooked. We should try to ensure that they are able to actually deliver this service at that when due, and when the project is actually ongoing, they are able to troubleshoot issues that arise during the project. Now, we're now going to discuss about the things or what we need to do to actually win the war on low-grade chemicals. How do we approach winning the war? Now, for us to do that, we need to change our mindset on what we think about quality. What exactly is quality? How do we define quality? Now, quality to us means competency, right? Competency means the performance of the vendor. How competent is not just the company, but also the people that work in the company. How competent are they? What is their technical depth? What experience do they have in such the line of work that you're about to engage them on? Secondly, quality is technical support. Are they able, do they have the R&D technical support? Do they have the R&D lab? Do they have the capacity to actually troubleshoot issues when they arise? Do they have are they able to come out clean? Communication is very key in this industry. If there is an issue, you should be able to communicate on time and as at when due, so that you're able to arrest the situation there. Also, quality is logistics. Now, if you're not able to deliver on time, that's a lot of money that that is a lot of setback for the operation in the long run. So you should be able to also deliver on time and safely, and also communicate with your clients. If there is any setback you're experiencing on the logistics, you should be able to inform them on time, so that there can be an alignment, or can be an engagement on what you can do to actually expedite or even resolve the situation as at the time. So delivery of your service or your product is very important. Timely delivery, very, very important. Also, customer engagement, which I've mentioned. Also, we need to understand, there should be a dialogue between the operator, the service companies. We should invest time in understanding what the project is all about. We should invest time in understanding the culture and what the client actually needs and wants, so that we can account for our services, or our capability for that project in the long run. And overall, strategic partnership. Now, we should not consider price over quality. Like I mentioned earlier, we should consider, building long-term partnerships with our vendors, and that will give us a competitive edge over over others playing in the game. Now, after that being said, I want us to take note of this. Winning the war on low-grade chemicals, we would need to definitely keep these truths in mind. Very important that hidden costs are real, right? What looked like a saving today will definitely crop up as a huge cost in the future. So we need to understand, are we going to prioritize cost over quality, which is not supposed to be the case. Quality should come first, because that would mean that we are protecting the integrity of our well, and as well as the integrity of our operations in the long run. Another truth we need to consider is operational continuity. This is very key. We want long-term profitability. We want long-term continuity of our project. We do not want a situation whereby drilling has completed and handed over to completions, and then they start having issues with their assets or their field, or completions are finished and then they handed over to production, and then production is saying they are having issues producing because of an issue that occurred during drilling or production. That is not the case. So we want that everybody should consider quality, not just in chemicals alone, but in every single input, be it tanks, be it valves, anything at all. We should consider quality over cost. Also, balanced decisions. What this means is that we should evaluate suppliers not only on cost, but on their reliability and their performance in the long run. We should consider the people they are engaging on, their people they have on their service line, the kind of experience they have in the field, as well as their approach to actually resolving issues when they crop up. These are decisions we need to consider, not just consider the cost, whether they are providing a cheap service or a cheap product in the long run. Also, end-to-end evaluation is very key. Now, we are assessing vendors on their people, on their technical support, on the logistics, on the compliance, whether they are compliant with the regulatory boards, and not just the product. Now, if you see, the war is not won by cutting costs alone, but it's won by protecting the trust and safety and long-term reliability of assets. And this is how you build trust in this industry. You build trust by doing the right thing, by engaging your customers, by making sure that your delivery at every single time is top-notch. Also, we should consider partnerships over transactions. What this means is that long-term collaboration will definitely transform your chemicals from a cost line to a competitive advantage. Now, this is very important because this industry is very small. One word will spread fast, and we need to consider that the partnership we have, or the kind of interaction we build with our customers or our client, is very key, and we use this as a competitive advantage over others. Now, this actually captures how CS Oilfield does its business. Now, CS Oilfield is not just about selling chemicals. What we do is actually to align with our customers, understand their needs, make sure that we deliver not just the product, or but deliver an entire service to our customer. We ensure that efficiency and reliability is key for every service or every product that we put out there in the industry. Secondly, we have the continuous engagement, where we actually do a feedback interaction between our clients. We don't just deliver the chemicals, but we ensure that we follow through. After use, what happened? What feedback do you have to give? How did the product work? Did they work to satisfaction? Is there anything we can actually improve upon, during our delivery? This is what we do in the long run. Also, we ensure that our R&D team are always available 24/7 to interact and to ensure that if there is any troubleshooting that needs to be done in the field, we are always available to assist and troubleshoot any issues throughout the life cycle of the operation. Also, we have a reliable logistic team where we deliver we have a partnership with the logistics operations team where we deliver a safe and timely and compliant delivery. We make sure that our products are actually packaged, in a compliant manner. We make sure that our service and vessel loads are very safe, and we ensure that there is a timely delivery of whatever product or service that we offer. And lastly, we prioritize partnership and capacity building. What this means is that we don't look at the transaction, but we look at the solutions that we have to offer and invest in local ecosystems to ensure that we are building a sustainable and value in the area or in the environment that we operate. Now, I leave you with this last words. Quality of oilfield chemistry is not defined by what is in the drum, but by the quality of the company that stands behind it. This is very key. Whatever company that is providing a chemical product or a chemical product or any product at all should be able to stand strongly behind the service or the product that they are offering. Thank you so much. I don't know if you have any questions for me.
Thank you so much. Do we have questions from the audience? Any questions from the audience? No questions from the audience. Once again, let's just give a round of applause for Mr. Ayobami.